Be quiet when the adults are talking. My son yelled that at me in the middle of the meeting about selling my house. Calmly, I walked out into the backyard and dialed a number. 5 minutes later, his phone rang, and my daughter-in-law's desperate scream was heard. "Mom, we're family. You can't do this to us." But I could. And I did. Now let me tell you how I got to that moment. How I went from being Eleanor, the mother who sacrificed everything, to being the old woman who needed to shut up while they decided my fate. This story begins with a betrayal planned for months, executed in my own living room, in front of my own children. That morning, I knew something bad was going to happen. I felt it in the air, in the way Julian had called the night before. "Mom, we need to talk. Tomorrow at 10. It's important. We'll all be there." His voice sounded strange, distant, like he was reading from a script. "We'll all be there." Those words kept me up all night. Who was everyone? Why did they all need to be present to talk to me? I am their mother, not a board meeting. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there they were, Julian and Chloe, holding hands as always, she in a sleek, pearl gray sheath dress and heels that clicked against the floor. Evan arrived 5 minutes later, avoiding my eyes, murmuring a good morning that sounded more like an advance apology. I let them in. I made a pot of coffee. Nobody touched it. They sat in formation, like a tribunal. Julian and Chloe on the main sofa, so close they looked like one person. Evan in the side armchair, his gaze fixed on the hardwood floor. And me, standing in front of them, because something inside told me not to sit, not to lower myself to their level, to maintain my dignity, even if I didn't yet know what I was being accused of. Chloe started talking in that soft voice she had perfected over 3 years. "Mom, we know this is difficult for you, but we need to make some important decisions. You're not young anymore. This house is too big. The stairs, the upkeep, it's all complicated for someone your age, someone my age." As if 61 years made me an invalid incapable of opening a door, Julian continued where she left off. "Mom, we've been thinking. The best thing would be to sell the house. There are more suitable options for you. Something smaller, simpler. And with the money from the sale, we could make a family investment that would benefit everyone." Family investment. What nice words for "we want your money." Evan was still silent, staring at those damn floors as if they were going to open up and swallow him. I tried to speak. I tried to say that this house was my home, that I had lived here for 32 years, that Arthur and I had bought it with our sweat, that every corner held our history. But I barely opened my mouth, barely said, "But son," when Julian raised his hand as if I were a dog that needed to be silenced. And then he said it, with that cold voice, with that contempt in his eyes. "Be quiet when the adults are talking." The world stopped. The air grew thick. I looked at my son, this man who had been my baby, my boy, my pride, and I didn't recognize him. Chloe was smiling. A small, almost imperceptible smile, but it was there, the smile of someone who just won. Evan looked up for the first time, met my gaze for 2 seconds, and looked down again. Coward. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I stood up straight, with the dignity they lacked, and walked into the backyard. Behind me, I heard Chloe's voice, calm, victorious. "Let her go. She'll understand. She's old. It's hard for her to process change. She's old, as if age were a disease. As if my years of sacrifice, of work, of love, meant nothing." I sat on the wrought iron bench that Arthur had painted white 2 weeks before his death. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from contained fury, of absolute clarity. I took out my phone. I looked for the number I had saved 4 months ago, a number Margaret had given me with a warning. "Only use this if you really need to, Eleanor. Once you do, there's no turning back," I dialed. Margaret answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm but alert. "Eleanor, it happened, didn't it?" "Yes, Margaret, it happened. Do it." There was a brief silence, then her voice, firm and professional. "Give me 5 minutes." I hung up. I sat there, looking at the hydrangeas climbing the backyard wall. I breathed in the fresh morning air. And I waited. Exactly 5 minutes later, Chloe's phone began to ring inside the house. I heard Chloe's phone vibrate first, then ring insistently. Once, twice, 3 times. She didn't answer. She was probably enjoying her victory, savoring the moment they had put me in my place, already planning how they would spend my money. But the phone kept ringing. Insistent. Annoying. Finally, I heard her voice. Hello? Pause. Yes, this is she. Another pause. Longer. What? What do you mean we can't? Her voice rose. That's impossible. I sat motionless on that bench, my hands in my lap, listening as panic began to seep into my daughter-in-law's voice. Julian asked something I couldn't hear. Chloe's answer was crystal clear. It's your mother's lawyer. She says the house can't be sold. Silence in the house. A silence so thick I could almost touch it. Then I heard quick footsteps. The backyard door flew open. Chloe came out, phone in hand, her face distorted, that mask of sweetness completely shattered. Julian was behind her, pale, confused. Evan peeked through the door but didn't come out. Mom, we're family. You can't do this to us. Chloe's voice trembled between pleading and rage. We just want what's best for you. How can you be so selfish? Think about your grandchildren. Think about Julian's future. I looked up slowly. I looked her straight in the eyes, those eyes that for 3 years had feigned affection, respect, admiration. Now I only saw what had always been there: greed, ambition, contempt. I already have thought about Julian's future, I said in a calm voice. That's why I did what I did. My son stepped forward. Mom, what did you do? What did you tell Margaret? His voice sounded like a scared child's, not the man who had told me to shut up 5 minutes earlier. I did what I should have done months ago, Julian. I protected what is mine. Chloe gripped the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. But you said the house was for the family, that one day it would be for your children. You promised. I never promised anything, Chloe. You assumed. You planned. You decided. All without consulting me. All while treating me as if I were already dead. Chloe's phone rang again. She answered with a trembling voice. Yes. A long pause. No, we didn't know. Another pause. Since when? Her face turned even paler. 4 months. She hung up. She looked at me with a hatred she no longer even tried to hide. You put the house in a trust 4 months ago. It can't be sold without your authorization, and if you die, it passes directly to a charitable foundation. You cut us out completely. Julian looked at me as if he didn't know me. Mom, how could you? We're your family. Exactly, Julian. You are my family. But today you treated me like trash. Today your wife decided my future without asking me. Today you, my own son, told me to shut up as if I were nobody. But we just wanted to help. Chloe intervened, switching tactics, softening her voice, trying to retrieve the sweet mask that had fallen. You're all alone, Mom. You need support. You need family close by. If I needed support, Chloe, I wouldn't have spent the last 6 months making you guys Sunday dinner while you checked your phone without saying a word to me. I wouldn't be paying for my grandkids' private school tuition while you buy $2,000 handbags. I wouldn't have become the maid for my own family. That's not true, Julian shouted. We love you. We've always loved you. I stood up. I looked at them both. Julian, when your father died, you came to visit me twice in 3 months. Twice. I was destroyed, alone, lost, and you were too busy. But when you needed money for the down payment on his car, you showed up. $20,000 I lent you. I'm still waiting to be paid back. Julian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. When Chloe was pregnant with the second baby, you moved into my house for 6 months. 6 months where I cooked, cleaned, took care of your older son while you went out on weekends to rest. I was 58 years old and exhausted, but I never said anything because you were my family. Chloe's voice was sharp. You offered to help. I offered because I'm your mother, Chloe, because that's how I was raised. But you turned my generosity into an obligation, my love into servitude. Evan finally came out into the backyard. Mom, I didn't know they were going to treat you like this today. I swear. But you let them, Evan. You sat there and let your brother humiliate me. You stared at the floor like a coward while they decided to sell my home. You are just as guilty as they are." My oldest son lowered his head. I was right. He knew it. Chloe regained her composure. "Fine. You win. But don't count on us ever again. Don't expect to see your grandchildren. Don't expect us to take care of you when you're sick. You chose money over family." I laughed. It was a bitter, tired laugh. "No, Chloe, I chose my dignity over your greed. You chose money when you planned this meeting. When you decided a 61-year-old woman didn't deserve a voice or a vote. When you assumed I was so stupid I wouldn't notice." Julian tried to get closer. "Mom, we can fix this. Let's talk calmly." "You already talked, Julian. You talked amongst yourselves for months. You planned. You coordinated. Today you just came to inform me of a decision already made. But it turns out I know how to plan, too." "When did you do it?" Evan asked. "When did you go to Margaret?" 4 months ago. The day I came to visit and overheard Chloe talking on the phone with her mother. She said they'd have a lot of money soon, that the old woman wouldn't last much longer anyway, that the house was in the best area and worth a fortune. That day, I left your house and called Margaret." Chloe turned white. "I never said that." "Liar. You said it in those exact words. I was in the hallway. I heard every word. And that day, I understood everything. I understood why you suddenly visited more, why you asked about the house, why Julian insisted on driving me to the bank." Julian shook his head, as if denying the truth could change it. "No, Mom, that's not true. Chloe never said that. You're confused. At your age, it's normal to." "To what, Julian? To imagine things? To invent conversations? To be senile? Is that what you were going to say?" He fell silent. The answer was in his silence. "I'm 61, not 90. My mind is perfectly clear. So clear I could see right through you, even when you weren't trying hard to hide it. So clear I hired the best lawyer in the city and protected my assets before you could take them from me." Chloe took a step toward me. Her face no longer showed sweetness or panic, just pure rage. "You are a selfish, bitter old woman who can't stand to see her family happy. Everything we did was out of love." "Love," I repeated. "Tell me, Chloe, what part of telling your husband to tell me to shut up is love? What part of planning to sell my house without my consent is love? What part of counting my money before I'm dead is love?" "I never counted your money. Lies. 2 months ago you went through the papers on my desk when I went to the bathroom. You thought I didn't notice, but you left the drawer slightly open. I always close it completely. Those papers were in alphabetical order, and you put them back out of order." Chloe's face contorted. She had no answer for that. Evan approached me. "Mom, I understand you're angry. You're right about everything. But to make that trust, to leave everything to a foundation, that's too much. We're your sons. We deserve something. Deserve. That's an interesting word, Evan. Tell me what you've done to deserve anything. Because I remember paying your entire college tuition, $40,000 in 4 years. I remember lending you $15,000 for the down payment on your house, which you also never paid back. I remember watching your kids every time you needed a favor. What do you remember?" Evan looked down again. "I've always thanked you, Mom. Thanking with words is easy, son. Defending your mother when she's being humiliated, that takes courage. And today, you sat there like a statue." Julian exploded. "That's enough. This is ridiculous. You're our mother. You can't punish us like this over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding." They called months of manipulation a misunderstanding. A meeting planned to strip me of my home. Being told to shut up in my own house. It's not a punishment, Julian. It's a consequence. You decided to treat me like a burden. I decided to protect myself. You planned my future without including me. I planned mine without including you. It's fair, don't you think? Chloe let out a dry, bitter laugh. Fair? What do you know about fair? We work, we strive, we raise your grandchildren. And you're going to leave all your money to strangers. They're not strangers, Chloe. It's a foundation that helps vulnerable seniors. Women like me, who were manipulated by their families. Women who need legal support to protect themselves from greedy children and ambitious daughters-in-law. The insult landed like a slap. Chloe clenched her fists. You're calling me ambitious. I'm not calling you anything, Chloe. I simply described the women the foundation helps. If the shoe fits, wear it. Julian stepped between us. This is over. Let's go, Chloe. I'm not staying here to listen to her insult my wife. Your wife has been insulting me for 3 years, Julian. She just did it with smiles and sweet words. Today, I just decided to speak the truth. Chloe grabbed her purse. She looked at me with contempt. You are going to die alone, ma'am. Completely alone. And when you're in a hospital bed, begging for help, don't count on us. Her words should have hurt me. They should have broken me. But the only thing I felt was relief. I'd rather die alone than live surrounded by vultures waiting for me to die. Julian pointed his finger at me. This isn't over, Mom. We're going to contest that trust. We're going to prove you weren't in your right mind when you signed it. Try it, son. Margaret made sure everything was legal. I signed in front of 3 witnesses, 2 of them doctors who certified my full mental capacity. I have psychological evaluations, cognitive studies, all documented. I spent $5,000 making sure it was ironclad. Evan shook his head. $5,000 you could have used on your family. $5,000 I invested in my peace of mind. The best investment of my life. Chloe walked to the door. Julian followed her, as always, like an obedient dog. Evan stayed a moment longer, looking at me with something resembling shame. Mom, no, Evan. Don't say anything. You had your chance to speak, and you chose silence. Now live with that decision. He nodded slowly and walked out after his siblings. I heard them murmuring in the living room, then the front door slammed shut. The silence that followed was absolute. I sat down on the bench again. My hands were no longer shaking. My breathing was calm. I looked at the garden that Arthur and I had planted together 20 years ago. The rose bushes he pruned every spring. The jasmine climbing the kitchen window. The pots of geraniums I watered every morning. This was my home, my sanctuary. The place where I had been happy, where I had grieved, where I had lived. And no one was going to take it from me. The phone rang. It was Margaret. Everything okay, Eleanor? Everything is fine, Margaret. Thank you. I told you it would work. When you told me what you overheard 4 months ago, I knew we needed to act fast. You did well to insist. I still had hope I was wrong. You're never wrong when it comes to intuition, Eleanor. 40 years of knowing you taught me that. I hung up and closed my eyes. The morning sun warmed my face. A gentle breeze rustled the hydrangea leaves. A bird was singing in the corner tree. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. I had lost my family, but I had gained something more valuable. My dignity, my autonomy, my right to decide my own life. I thought of Arthur, of what he would have said if he had seen all this. He probably would have confronted Julian long before I did. Arthur never tolerated disrespect, especially towards me. He was a good man, a man who loved me until his last breath. I miss you, Arthur, I whispered to the wind. But today, I did what you would have wanted. I defended myself. I went inside the house. The living room still smelled of Chloe's perfume, that cloying, sweet scent that always gave me a headache. I opened the windows. I let the fresh air in. In half an hour, there would be no trace of them. I made coffee, this time for me. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one Arthur gave me for our 20th anniversary. The leather was worn, but it was comfortable. It was mine. The phone didn't stop ringing for 3 days. Julian called every hour, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to threats. Mom, please, pick up. We need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. Then, 2 hours later, you're making a mistake. You're going to regret this. And later, into the night, I warned you, Mom. We're going to contest everything. You'll see you're not as smart as you think. I deleted every message without finishing it. Chloe tried to contact me too. She sent long text messages. Mom, I know we're going through a tough time, but family is the most important thing. The kids are asking for you. They're sad. It's not fair for them to pay for our adult problems. Then, when I didn't respond, you were being cruel. Selfish. I never thought you were so petty. And finally, fine, you win. But remember that elderly people who end up alone usually end up badly. Very badly. I blocked her number. Evan was the only one who didn't insist. He sent me a single text. Mom, I'm sorry for how things happened. I need time to process everything. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply, but I didn't block him either. During those 3 days, I dedicated myself to doing something I hadn't done in years. Living for myself. I got up without rushing, made my favorite breakfast, coffee with toast and strawberry jam. I sat on the balcony watching the city wake up. I read the book I had bought 6 months ago and never had time to open because I was always cooking for someone, cleaning for someone, available for someone. On the 4th day, Margaret came to visit. She had a folder under her arm, and that expression she only gets when she has news. They tried to contest the trust, she said bluntly, sitting in the living room. Julian hired a lawyer, a cheap one, by the way. They filed a motion alleging you were coerced and not of sound mind when you signed. I took a deep breath. And what happened? The judge threw it out in 48 hours. We have 3 medical evaluations, notarized testimonies, videos of the signing. Everything indicates you were perfectly lucid and made the decision free of pressure. His lawyer didn't even present real evidence, just vague accusations. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. So it's closed. Completely. What's more, the judge warned Julian that any new attempt to contest, without basis, could be considered legal harassment. Your son left that courtroom furious, from what I'm told. Margaret took some papers from the folder. But there's something else I need you to see. This arrived at my office yesterday. I read the document. It was a lawsuit. Julian and Chloe were suing me for the return of all gifts and loans they had received over the last 3 years. They were claiming $35,000. According to them, everything had been given under the understanding that they would inherit the house, and by changing that, they considered it fraud. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A dry, incredulous laugh. They're suing me for the money I gave them? Technically, they're arguing they were investments with an expectation of return. It's absurd, but they're desperate. Can they win? Margaret shook her head. Eleanor, every dollar you gave them is documented as a gift or a loan with no due date. I have the bank receipts, the text messages where they themselves thank you for your generosity. They don't have a case. But the process will be annoying and public. Let it be. I'm not afraid of a scandal anymore. I don't care about keeping up appearances anymore. Margaret smiled. That's my Eleanor. The one I met 40 years ago. The woman who didn't take crap from anyone. I got lost for a while, Margaret. I became what they needed me to be. The complacent mother. The helpful grandmother. The old woman who doesn't protest. But that day, when Julian told me to shut up, something inside me broke. And what came out was the real me. It was time, she said, putting the papers away. By the way, the foundation wants to meet you. I told them your story, obviously without personal details, and they're impressed. They want you to consider being on the advisory board. Me? On a board? You're exactly the type of person they need. Someone who lived the experience. Someone who fought back. Your story can help other women. I'll think about it. After Margaret left, I kept thinking about everything that had happened. 4 days ago, my family was in my living room trying to rob me. Now they were suing me because they failed. The irony was almost poetic. I couldn't sleep that night. Not from anxiety, but from memories. I remembered the day I met Arthur. I was 19 years old. He was 23. He worked at a hardware store, and I came in looking for screws to fix a chair. He helped me for an hour to find exactly what I needed. 3 days later, he showed up at my mother's house to ask if the chair was fixed properly. We got married 8 months later. It was 38 years of marriage. Good years. Not perfect, but good. Arthur was patient, hardworking, loyal. We raised our children with solid values. Or so we thought. We taught them to respect, to be honest, to value family. Where did we fail? Maybe we didn't fail, I thought. Maybe Julian made his own decisions. Maybe he chose a woman who reinforced his worst characteristics instead of his best. Maybe Evan was always a coward, and I just didn't want to see it. Maybe we, as parents, did the best we could, and it still wasn't enough. On the 5th day, I received an unexpected visit. It was 3 in the afternoon. I was in the backyard pruning the rose bushes when the doorbell rang. I thought about not opening it. It could be Julian. It could be Chloe. It could be another fight. But something made me open it. And there was Evan, alone, without his wife, Paige, without his kids, just him, hands in his pockets and his eyes red. "Can I come in, Mom?" I hesitated for a moment. Then I opened the door completely. We went into the living room. I offered him coffee. He accepted. We sat in silence for 5 full minutes, him staring at his cup, me waiting. Finally, he spoke. "I'm a coward." I didn't respond. I wanted to hear what else he had to say. "I should have defended you that day. I should have stood up and told Julian to shut up. I should have told Chloe they had no right to decide your life. But I just sat there, staring at the floor like an idiot. Why, Evan? Why didn't you say anything?" He rubbed his face with both hands. "Because I'm afraid of Julian. I always have been. Since we were kids, he was the strong one, the confident one, the one who made decisions. I was the older brother, but I felt like the younger one. And when he married Chloe, she made him worse, more aggressive, more controlling. That's no excuse to betray me. I know. That's why I'm here. Not to ask for forgiveness, because I don't deserve it. I came to tell you that you were right about everything. About the trust. About protecting yourself. About pushing us away. Us. Interesting that you include yourself. I have to include myself, Mom. I've also abused your generosity. The $15,000 you lent me for the house, I never thought about paying you back. I assumed you were my mother, and it was your duty to help me. I was wrong." He took an envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket. He put it on the table. "This is what I owe you, $15,000. I can't pay you back for the time you wasted watching my kids while I worked. I can't pay you back for the meals you cooked. But I can do this." I looked at the envelope without touching it. "I don't need your money, Evan. It's not about need, Mom. It's about justice. You were right. We turned your generosity into an obligation. Today I came to settle my debt, not the emotional one. I can never settle that. But at least the financial one. Why now, Evan? Why not before? Why not that day when your brother humiliated me? Because I'm a coward. I already told you, but also because Paige opened my eyes. When I told her what happened, she looked at me with such disappointment. She told me I was acting like a weak man, that our children were learning from my example, and that if I didn't change, I'd end up alone. Your wife is wise." Evan nodded. "She told me to come, to talk to you, to try to repair even a piece of what I broke. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope you know I'm sorry." I looked at my oldest son, this 38-year-old man who looked older than he was. The wrinkles around his eyes had appeared suddenly. Or maybe they were always there, and I just didn't want to see them. Evan had been a shy, insecure child who hid behind me when guests came over. Arthur used to worry about it. He needs to toughen up, Eleanor. The world is hard on weak people. But I defended him. He's sensitive, Arthur. That's not weakness. Over time, I learned my husband was right. Sensitivity without a backbone becomes cowardice. "Take your money, Evan," I said finally, pushing the envelope toward him. "I don't want it." "Mom, please. No. Listen to me. If I accept that money, I'm validating the transaction. I'm saying our relationship is commercial, that everything can be fixed with cash. And it's not like that." Evan's shoulders slumped. "Then what do you want from me? I want you to be honest. I want you to tell me if you really came out of remorse or if Julian sent you to soften me up." He looked me straight in the eyes for the first time since he arrived. "Julian doesn't know I'm here. In fact, when he finds out, he'll probably stop talking to me. He's furious with you, but even more furious with the world. Chloe has him wound up. They're drowning in debt." "Debt?" Evan nodded. "They owe $80,000 in credit card debt. The car they bought 2 years ago is about to be repossessed. The house they live in is a rental, and they're 3 months behind on payments. That's why they needed your house. It wasn't about you. It was because they're desperate, and they thought they could solve their crisis with my assets. Exactly. Chloe convinced Julian it was the right thing to do, that you didn't need that much space, that it was selfish for you to live in a $350,000 house while they were struggling. She has a special talent for making her ideas sound reasonable. I know her well, I said bitterly. She had me fooled for 3 years. I thought she liked me, respected me. Nobody likes her, Mom. I'm not even sure Julian loves her. I think he's afraid of her. Afraid of being alone. Afraid to admit he married the wrong woman. That's not my problem, Evan. I know. And I'm not asking you to make it your problem. I just came to tell you the truth. To apologize. And to give you this. He took another paper from his pocket. It was a handwritten letter. The handwriting was uneven, shaky. I immediately recognized Evan's writing. He always had terrible handwriting. Read it when I'm gone, he said. I don't want to be here. I'm too ashamed. He stood up. He left the envelope with the money on the table. Mom, I know you're not accepting this, but I'm going to leave it here anyway. Use it, give it away, burn it. Do whatever you want, but I needed to bring it. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he stopped. One more thing. Julian is going to keep trying. He's not going to stop. He's convinced the house should be his. Chloe has him programmed like a robot. Be careful. I am being careful, Evan. That's why I did what I did. He nodded and left. I heard his footsteps in the hall, the door closing softly. I stayed in the living room with the envelope and the letter. I picked up the letter first. I opened it with trembling hands. Mom, I don't know how to start this. I've been writing and erasing for 3 days. Paige says I just need to be honest, so here it goes. I'm a failure as a son. I always have been. Dad knew it. You know it. I know it. I spent my life hiding behind Julian, letting him make the tough decisions, letting him face the problems. And when I had to defend you, I hid again. I failed you at the most important moment. I have no excuse. I only have shame. These last 3 days, I've thought a lot. About how we treated you, about how we abused you, about how we took your love for granted as if it were infinite and unconditional. And maybe it was. But we had no right to exploit it. Paige asked me something that destroyed me. She said, if your sons treated you the way you treat your mother, how would you feel? I couldn't answer, because the truth broke me. I've been teaching my sons, by my example, that it's okay to use people, that it's okay to stay quiet in the face of injustice, that it's okay to be a coward. I don't want them to be like me. That's why I'm changing. Not for you, though I owe you everything, but for them, for my kids. Because they deserve a better father. This money doesn't fix anything, I know that, but it's the only tangible thing I can do. The rest, the real repair, is going to take years, if I ever even get there. I'm not asking for forgiveness. That would be too easy. I'm asking for time. Time to show you I can be better. Time to rebuild what I broke. And if you decide you don't want to give me that time, I'll understand. I love you, Mom. I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it without failing you. Evan. I read the letter 3 times, each time with more clarity. Evan was right about one thing. He was a coward. But at least he was a self-aware coward. That was more than I could say for Julian. I put the letter in my desk drawer, the envelope with the money I left on the table. I didn't know what to do with it yet. The following days were strangely quiet, as if the universe was giving me a break after the storm. I dedicated myself to rearranging the house. I took down old photos of Julian and Chloe. I didn't throw them away. I stored them in a box in the closet. Maybe one day I could look at them without feeling rage. But that day wasn't today. I rearranged the living room, moved furniture, changed the curtains to mint green ones I had seen in a store months ago, but never bought because Chloe had said they were hideous. Now they hung in my window, and I loved them. Margaret called to confirm my participation in the first advisory board meeting for the foundation. I accepted. Why not? I had time. I had experience. I had a story to tell. The meeting was in a small but cozy office downtown. There were 6 other women, all over 50, all with stories similar to mine. Sons who manipulated them, families that exploited them, assets they almost lost. One of them, Iris, was 72 years old. Her son had put her in a nursing home without her consent to sell her house. She managed to get out with legal help, but not before he emptied her bank accounts. She lost $200,000. "My son is in prison now," she said calmly, "not because I reported him, but because he did the same thing to 3 other elderly women. Eventually, criminals expose themselves." Another woman, Esmeralda, 65 years old, told how her daughter-in-law convinced her to put the house in her son's name. 3 months later, they kicked her out. She had to live with a cousin for 2 years until a judge reversed the transfer for fraud. "My mistake was trusting," she said. "But I don't make that mistake anymore. I listened to their stories for 3 hours, each one more heartbreaking than the last. And I understood something fundamental. I was not alone. This wasn't personal against me. It was a pattern. A silent epidemic of family abuse that no one wanted to name because family is sacred. Because mothers must sacrifice. Because questioning your children is taboo." At the end of the meeting, the foundation coordinator, Yasmin, asked me to share my story. I spoke for 20 minutes. I told them about Chloe, about Julian, about the meeting, about the trust, about how I took my power back. When I finished, Iris took my hand. "You did the right thing," she said. "It doesn't matter how much it hurts. It doesn't matter how much they criticize you. Protecting yourself is never selfishness. It's survival." I left that meeting feeling stronger than ever. I had found my tribe. Women who understood, who didn't judge me, who had fought their own battles and won. That night, sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, I looked at the illuminated city. The lights twinkled like earthbound stars. The traffic noise was a distant hum. The air smelled of approaching rain. I thought of Arthur. How proud he would be of me. I thought of Evan and his letter, his late attempt at redemption. I thought of Julian, probably in his rented house, furious, planning his next move. And I realized something. I didn't care what they did anymore. I no longer lived for their approval. I no longer needed their love if the price was my dignity. 2 weeks passed with no news from Julian. 2 weeks of silence that were more eloquent than any words. I knew he was out there, stewing in his anger, planning something. Margaret had warned me. Men like your son don't give up, especially when they feel something they considered theirs was taken. But I hadn't taken anything. I had simply protected what was mine. In that time, my life took on a new rhythm. I joined a book club at the local library. 8 women who met every Thursday afternoon to discuss novels. The first time I went, I felt out of place. They already knew each other, had their inside jokes, their shared references, but they welcomed me with genuine warmth. One of them, a woman named Dolores, just like my lawyer, but no relation, asked me why I had decided to join. "I needed to remember who I was before I became just a mother and grandmother," I told her. She smiled. "We're all here for the same reason." I also started taking yoga classes twice a week. The instructor, a young man named Salvador, had the patience of a saint. The first class, I almost gave up. I couldn't touch my toes, my back cracked with every movement, and the poses that were simple for others were medieval torture for me. But Salvador approached me and said something that stuck with me. Yoga isn't about perfection. It's about the attempt, about showing up, about respecting where your body is today, not where it was 20 years ago. I kept showing up. Each class got a little easier. My body began to remember that it could bend, stretch, breathe. One afternoon, as I was returning from yoga, I found Evan waiting at the door of my building. He was holding 2 coffees and a bag of pastries. He didn't say anything. He just held up the coffees as a peace offering. We went up in silence. In the apartment, we sat on the balcony. The sun was beginning to set, staining the sky in intense orange and pink. "Paige wants to invite you to dinner," he said at last. "Next Saturday, just the 4 of us. You, me, her, and the kids." "Do the kids know what happened?" Evan shook his head. "They just know the family is going through a tough time. They're little. They don't need to know the details. But they miss you. They ask about you." I felt a pang in my chest. My grandchildren. They had been innocent victims in all of this. They weren't to blame for their parents' decisions. "I'll think about it," I said. "Okay, no rush. The invitation is permanent." We drank coffee in silence for a while. Then Evan spoke again. "Julian is worse. Chloe left him." I looked at him, surprised. "When?" "A week ago. She took the kids and went to live with her mother. She says she can't be with such a weak man. That if he couldn't get the money from his own mother, how is he going to support a family?" The irony was almost comical. Chloe had manipulated Julian into robbing me, and when he failed, she abandoned him for failing. How is he? Destroyed. He's not going to work. He's not answering calls. I went to see him 3 days ago. The apartment is a disaster. He is a disaster. He blames me. Abe blames you. He blames the whole world except Chloe. He still doesn't see who she really is. Evan nodded. He's blind. Or maybe he doesn't want to see. It's easier to blame you than to accept he married a woman who only wanted him for money. Money he never even had, by the way. Did you try to talk to him? I tried. He yelled at me. He told me I was a traitor, that I had chosen your side, that I was never really his brother. Maybe he's right about that last part. He's not, Evan. Being a brother doesn't mean being an accomplice. It means telling the truth even when it hurts. I should have told him years ago. When he met Chloe, I saw the signs. I saw how she manipulated him, how she isolated him from his friends, how every decision went through her filter. But I said nothing because I didn't want problems. Silence is also a choice. The worst choice, Evan admitted. Because now my brother is alone, broke, and I don't know how to help him. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. Julian needs to hit bottom. He needs to wake up, and only he can do that. Evan finished his coffee. Before leaving, he hugged me. It was a long, tight hug, full of regret and hope. "Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom. I still don't know if I've forgiven you, Evan, but I'm trying. That's more than I deserve." After he left, I kept thinking about Julian, my younger son, the boy who had been so cheerful, so affectionate, the one who would climb into my bed on Sunday mornings asking me to make him pancakes, the one who cried on my shoulder when his first crush rejected him, the one who hugged me at Arthur's funeral and promised he would always be there for me. Where had that boy gone? When did he become this bitter man who yelled at me and despised me? Was it my fault? Did I overprotect him? Did I give him everything without teaching him the value of hard work? Or was it Chloe who corrupted him? Or was it just life, showing who he really was? I had no answers, only questions that kept me up at night. The following Saturday, I accepted Evan's invitation. I arrived at his house at 7 in the evening. It was a modest but cozy home. Paige greeted me with a genuine hug. The children, 6 and 9 years old, ran to me shouting, "Grandma." They wrapped their little arms around me, and I felt something inside me melt. I had missed them, more than I wanted to admit. Dinner was simple: roast chicken, salad, mashed potatoes, nothing elaborate, but made with love. The kids talked nonstop, telling me about school, about their friends, about the dog they wanted but Evan wouldn't let them have because the landlord didn't allow pets. After dinner, while Paige put the kids to bed, Evan and I washed the dishes. We worked in silence, in that synchronicity that only comes from years of knowing each other. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Thanks for insisting. I want this to be regular. For you to come every week if you want. To be part of my kids' lives. For you not to pay for my mistakes. Your kids were never the problem, Evan. You were. I know. And I'm working on being better. Paige has me in therapy, twice a week. The therapist says I have issues with boundaries and self-esteem. That's why I always let Julian dominate me. Therapy is good. I wish I had gone after your father died. It's never too late, Mom. My therapist works with seniors, too. I'll think about it. When I left that night, Evan walked me to the taxi. Before I got in, he gave me another paper. It's from Julian. He gave it to me to give to you. I don't know what it says. If you don't want to read it, don't. I took the paper and put it in my purse. In the taxi, as the city passed by the window, I took out the letter. Julian's handwriting was firm, angular, Nothing like Evan's shaky script. "Mom, I don't know how to address you. I don't know if I deserve to call you that anymore." Chloe left. She took my kids. She says I'm a failure. Maybe she's right. I lost my job 2 weeks ago. I couldn't concentrate. I was late. I made mistakes. They fired me. The apartment we lived in, they're taking it back next month. I haven't paid rent in 4 months. I owe money to everyone. Creditors call day and night. I'm ruined. And the worst part is, I know it's my fault. Not yours, mine. Evan told me you warned me about Chloe at the beginning, that you saw something in her I refused to see. You were right. You were always right. She never loved me. She used me. And I let her use me because it was easier than being alone. I'm not writing to ask for money. I know you wouldn't give it to me, and I shouldn't ask. I'm writing because I need you to know I'm sorry. I'm sorry for yelling at you. I'm sorry for disrespecting you. I'm sorry for trying to rob you. Because that's what it was. A robbery, not a family investment, not a logical decision. A robbery planned by my wife and executed by me. I'm a thief who tried to steal from his own mother. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve it. I just hope that one day you can remember me as the boy I was, not the man I became, Julian. I read Julian's letter 3 times before I got to my apartment. Every word was loaded with pain, regret, and a clarity I had never seen in him. But there was also something that bothered me. A part of me, the part that had been hurt, humiliated, betrayed, wondered if this was real or just another manipulation. If Julian had learned so well from Chloe that he now used vulnerability as a weapon, I couldn't know for sure, and that uncertainty tormented me. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on the balcony until the sun began to rise, painting the sky in soft colors, lavender and peach. I thought about my 2 sons. Evan, the coward who was trying to change. Julian, the manipulator who was perhaps waking up. And I thought about me, about Eleanor. The woman I had been, the one I was now, the one I wanted to be. I didn't have to make an immediate decision. I had learned that in recent weeks. Not all crises required instant answers. Sometimes the wisest thing was to wait, to observe, to let time reveal true intentions. I put Julian's letter next to Evan's. 2 documents of repentance, 2 different paths to redemption, one already being walked, the other just beginning. The days went on. Yoga classes continued. The book club became something I looked forward to. The foundation meetings gave me purpose. And the weekly dinners with Evan and his family gave me back something I thought I had lost forever. Genuine connection. A month after receiving Julian's letter, Margaret called with news. "Your son dropped the lawsuit. His lawyer sent an official notice. Says it was a mistake, that he was going through a difficult time, and that he will not proceed with any legal action against you." I sat on the sofa, processing the information. That's good, I suppose. It's very good, Eleanor. It means he finally understood he has no case. Or that he has no money to keep paying lawyers. Probably both. Do you know how he is? Margaret paused. I took the liberty of investigating a bit. Not officially, just as a concerned friend. He's living in a rented room in the North Side. He's working as a food delivery driver. Chloe won't let him see the kids. She filed for divorce and is demanding full child support. Child support. When he has nothing. Exactly. It's her revenge. She didn't get your money, so now she's destroying him another way. That woman is dangerous, Eleanor. You were lucky to protect yourself when you did. It wasn't luck. It was survival. After hanging up with Margaret, I kept thinking about Julian. In that rented room. In that menial job. In that devastating loneliness. A part of me, that maternal part that never fully dies, wanted to go find him, to hug him, to tell him everything would be okay. But another part, the part that had learned to set boundaries, knew that would be a mistake. Julian needed to live the consequences of his decisions. He needed to feel the weight of what he had done. Only then could he grow. Only then could he truly change. 2 weeks later, as I was returning from yoga, I saw him. He was on the corner of my street, in the uniform of a food delivery app, his scooter parked next to him, looking up at my building. He wasn't coming up. He wasn't ringing the bell. Just looking. I stopped half a block away. I could turn around. I could avoid him. But something in his posture, in the way his shoulders slumped in defeat, stopped me. I took a deep breath and walked toward him. He saw me approaching. His face showed surprise, then shame, then something like relief. "Mom," he said, his voice hoarse. "Julian." We stood there, 2 yards apart, like two strangers who were once everything to each other. "Did you get my letter?" he asked. "Yes." I didn't expect an answer. "I just needed you to know how I feel." "How do you feel, Julian? Enlighten me. Because 2 months ago, you yelled at me and humiliated me. A month ago, you sued me. And now you're standing here with a look of regret. So tell me, what do you really feel?" He looked down. "Shame. I feel ashamed. I feel stupid. I feel like the worst son in the world." "Good. You should feel that way. I deserve it. I deserve that, and more." A car passed, honking. We moved against the building wall. Julian looked thinner, older. The uniform was too big for him, as if it were designed for someone else. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his hands were shaking slightly. "Are you eating well?" I asked before I could stop myself. He smiled sadly. "Now you sound like my mom." "I am your mom, Julian. As much as you've tried to forget it." "I never forgot. I just ignored it. I thought I could treat you however I wanted because you'd always be there. Because mothers always forgive. Because a mother's love is unconditional. Love can be unconditional. Respect is not. You're right, as always. Not always, Julian. I made mistakes with you. I made them with both of you. I overprotected you. I gave you too much. I didn't teach you to value hard work because I wanted you to have what I never had. But in doing so, I left you weak. It wasn't your fault. I made my own decisions. I chose Chloe, knowing something was wrong. I chose to ignore your warnings. I chose to treat you badly because she convinced me you were the obstacle between us and happiness. And now that she's gone, you've woken up." Julian nodded. "I woke up when it was already too late. When I had already lost everything. My wife, my kids, my job, my dignity, and you. Above all, you." A woman came out of the building with her dog. She looked at us curiously before walking on. The sun was beating down. It was hot. Julian's uniform had sweat stains under the arms. "You can't just stand here on the street," I said finally. "Come up." Julian looked up, surprised. "Really? 5 minutes. That's all." We rode up the elevator in silence. The enclosed space made everything more awkward. Julian watched the numbers light up. I watched my reflection in the metal doors. We looked so different, like two people who no longer recognized each other. In the apartment, I offered him water. He drank it in one gulp. I offered him another. He drank that one quickly, too. When I offered him food, his eyes filled with tears. "I didn't come for food, Mom. I know. But you're hungry. I can see it." I heated up soup I had made the day before. Toast. Cheese. I put it all on the table. Julian ate in silence, his head down, as if every bite were another humiliation he had to swallow. When he finished, he wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Thank you." "You're welcome. I don't just mean for the food, I mean for letting me in, for not spitting in my face, for treating me with more dignity than I treated you. I'm not like you, Julian. I don't enjoy humiliating people." The blow was direct. He felt it. He flinched as if I had physically slapped him. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for everything I did, everything I said, everything I allowed her to do to you. She didn't do anything to me that you didn't allow, Julian. Chloe was the architect, but you were the enforcer. You chose to yell at me. You chose to tell me to shut up. You chose to try to take my home. I know, and I'm going to live with that for the rest of my life." We sat in silence for several minutes. The wall clock ticked off the seconds. Outside, you could hear children playing in the park. Life went on, indifferent to our pain. "What do you want from me, Julian? What do you expect me to do?" He looked up. "Nothing. I don't expect anything. I just wanted to see you. To tell you in person that I'm sorry. That you were right to protect yourself. That I wish I had been the son you deserved instead of the one I was. You still can be. How? After everything I did, how can I fix this? I leaned forward. It doesn't get fixed in a day, Julian. Not in a month. Maybe not even in a year. But it starts with fixing your life. By getting out of the hole Chloe left you in. By fighting to see your kids. By becoming the man your father would have wanted you to be. Dad would be so disappointed in me. Yes, he would be. But he would also be proud to see you get up. Arthur fell many times, Julian. Life hit him hard. But he always got up. He always kept going. That's what you're missing. Resilience. Julian wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I don't know if I can do it alone. Then get help. Evan is in therapy. It's working for him. Maybe it will work for you. I don't have money for therapy. There are free clinics. There are support groups. There are ways. If you really want to change, you'll find a way. He stood up. I have to go. I have deliveries pending. If I don't meet my quota, they fine me. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he stopped. Can I come back? Not for food, just to talk. To show you I'm trying to change. I thought about it carefully. You can come back, but with conditions. No drama, no manipulation. No trying to make me feel guilty. If you come honestly, with respect. He nodded. Deal. Julian came back 2 weeks later. This time he called before coming. Mom, can I visit on Saturday afternoon? His voice sounded different, less desperate, calmer. Yes, 4 o'clock is fine. He arrived on time. He brought a small bag with pastries from a neighborhood bakery. It's not much, he said, but I wanted to bring something. I accepted it. The gesture mattered more than the gift. We sat in the living room. This time the conversation flowed more naturally. He told me about his job, the deliveries, the nice customers and the rude ones, the tips that sometimes saved his day. He also told me he had found a mental health clinic that offered low-cost therapy. I went to my first session 3 days ago. How did it go? Hard. The therapist asked me questions I didn't want to answer. About Chloe. About my relationship with you. About why I always needed external approval to feel worthy. And what did you answer? That I don't know. But I want to find out. That's a good start, Julian. He also talked about his children. He missed them deeply. Chloe wouldn't let him see them. She said he was a bad example. That until he had financial stability, he didn't deserve to be a father. I hired a public defender, he told me. He's going to fight for visitation. He says I have rights, even if I don't have money. You do have rights. You're their father. Chloe says I gave up being their father when I failed to provide for them. Chloe says a lot of things, mostly lies designed to hurt. Julian smiled sadly. How did I not see that before? How could I have been so blind? Love is blind, Julian, especially when the other person is an expert at manipulation. He stayed for an hour. Before leaving, he asked if he could come back next week. I said yes. This time when he left, I didn't feel the weight of betrayal. I felt something like hope, cautious, fragile, but it was there. Evan found out Julian was visiting me. He was worried. Mom, be careful. I don't want him to hurt you again. I am being careful, Evan, but I'm also giving him a chance. Like I gave you. Evan nodded. I understand. I just don't want you to confuse remorse with manipulation. Julian is good at saying what you want to hear, I know. That's why I'm watching his actions. Not just his words. Julian's visits became regular, every Saturday at 4. Sometimes he brought bread. Other times, cheap flowers from the market. He always arrived on time. He always left when he said he would. He never asked for money. He never tried to manipulate me. He just talked. He told me about his week, about his progress in therapy, about his small victories. One day he told me something that surprised me. The therapist says part of my problem is that I never learned to value what I had, that I was always looking for more without appreciating what was enough. He says it comes from an internal emptiness that no amount of money or possessions can fill. Your therapist is wise. He's making me write letters. Of gratitude. Things I'm grateful for. It's harder than I thought. I've spent so much time focusing on what I don't have that I forgot to see what I did have. And what have you written? Julian took out a small notebook. I'm embarrassed, but I want to read one to you. He opened the notebook. His handwriting was more careful than the previous letter, more deliberate. He began to read. I am grateful for my mother, for the nights she stayed awake when I had a fever, for the lunches she packed every day for school, for the times she defended my dreams even when she didn't understand them, for continuing to breathe after my father died so I wouldn't be alone, for not slamming the door in my face when I deserved it, for teaching me, by her example, that dignity matters more than comfort, for being stronger than I will ever be. He closed the notebook. His eyes were wet. That's what I wrote last night. I couldn't speak. Tears were rolling down my cheeks without permission. Julian moved closer and took my hand. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I didn't see all of that when I had it. The months passed. Fall arrived with its amber-colored leaves falling in the streets. Yoga classes had made me more flexible. The book club had given me new friends. The foundation had given me purpose. And my sons, slowly, had given me hope. Evan organized a Christmas dinner. Small. Just us. You, me, Paige, the kids, and Julian. If you want to invite him, he told me. I want to invite him. Christmas Eve arrived with a soft rain. Evan's apartment was decorated modestly but with love. Warm lights, a small tree, gifts wrapped in recycled paper. Julian arrived with a cake he had bought with his tips from the week. It's not much, he said, but I wanted to contribute. The kids ran to him. Uncle Julian! They hadn't seen him in months. Chloe had blocked all contact, but Evan had fought legally and won supervised visits. This was the first time Julian had seen his nephews in almost half a year. Dinner was quiet. We talked, we laughed. The kids told bad jokes. Paige served turkey with cranberry sauce. Evan made a toast to family, to new beginnings, to forgiveness. Julian looked at me across the table. He raised his glass to me. His eyes said what his mouth couldn't articulate at that moment. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. After dinner, while the kids played with their new gifts, Julian approached me in the kitchen. I have news. The judge granted me visitation with my kids. 2 Saturdays a month. Supervised for now, but it's a start. That's wonderful, Julian. And I got a better job. In a warehouse. It's not glamorous, but it pays more than deliveries and has benefits. I start in January. You're rebuilding your life. He nodded. Slowly. But yes. The therapist says progress isn't linear, that I'm going to have bad days. But he also says that every right decision brings me closer to the person I want to be. Your father would be proud. Julian's eyes filled with tears. You think so? I know so. He hugged me then. A real hug. Not desperate or manipulative. Just a son hugging his mother. And I hugged him back. Because that's what mothers do. They forgive when the remorse is genuine. They give chances when the change is real. But they also protect themselves. They also set boundaries. They also say no when necessary. That night, on the way back to my apartment, I looked out the taxi window. The city was shining with Christmas lights. Families walked together on the streets. The world kept spinning. Life went on. I thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the betrayal, the pain. But I also thought about the strength I had found, the boundaries I had set, the dignity I had reclaimed. I had lost a lot, but I had gained more. I had gained self-respect. I had gained peace. I had gained the certainty that I could survive alone if necessary. And I wasn't alone. I had Evan, who was doing the work to change. I had Julian, who was finally waking up. I had Margaret, my faithful friend. I had my book club, my yoga partners, the women at the foundation. I had a life. My life. Not the one others had planned for me. Not the one that had been imposed on me. But the one I had chosen to build after everything fell apart. The apartment greeted me in silence. I turned on the lights. I made tea. I sat in my favorite armchair with a blanket over my legs. Outside, it was still raining softly. The sound of the drops against the window was relaxing. I checked my phone. I had a message from Evan. "Thanks for coming, Mom. The kids are happy. Paige is happy. I'm happy. We love you." Another message. This one from Julian. "Thank you for not giving up on me. I'm going to spend my life trying to be worthy of your forgiveness. Merry Christmas, Mom." I replied to both. "I love you. Merry Christmas." And it was true. I loved them. Despite everything, despite the pain, because a mother's love doesn't disappear. It just transforms. It becomes wiser, more careful, more aware. 6 months after that Christmas, my life had found a balance I never thought possible. It wasn't the life I had imagined when Arthur was alive. It wasn't the perfect family I had dreamed of raising. It was something different, something real, something earned with pain and rebuilt with dignity. My mornings started early, yoga at 7, then a quiet breakfast on my balcony, watching the city wake up. The days no longer felt empty or heavy. They felt like mine. Julian had kept his word. Every Saturday, he came to visit. He no longer brought gifts, just his presence. He told me about his job at the warehouse, about his therapy sessions, about the visits with his children, which were no longer supervised. The judge had seen his progress and expanded his rights. Now he could take them to his small apartment 2 weekends a month. One day he brought me photos. "Look, Mom." I took them to the park. We played soccer. Santiago scored 2 goals. Miranda built a sandcastle. I looked at them, smiling. They look happy. They are, and so am I. For the first time in years, I'm happy without needing anything external, without depending on Chloe, without depending on money I don't have. Just being a dad. That's all that matters, Julian. He also told me that Chloe had tried to come back. She wanted to return. She had broken up with the man she'd left for. She needed financial help. She thought Julian would be an easy target again. "And what did you tell her?" I asked. I told her no, that we could be civil co-parents for our children, but that our relationship as a couple was over forever. She got angry. She threatened me. But I'm not afraid of her anymore. The therapist helped me see that her power over me only existed because I gave it to her. "I'm proud of you." Julian looked at me with bright eyes. "I never thought I'd hear you say that again." "Well, listen to it good. I'm proud of the man you are choosing to be." Evan had also changed. He was still in therapy. He had learned to set boundaries, to say no, to defend his convictions. One day, he came to one of our weekly dinners with news. "Mom, I quit my job." "Why?" "I thought it was going well. It was going well financially, but it was killing me emotionally. My boss was abusive. He would yell at me in front of others. He made me stay late without overtime pay. And I let him because I was afraid of being unemployed. But my therapist asked me something that changed my perspective. He asked, would you rather have money and lose your dignity, or have less money and keep your soul? And you chose your soul. I chose my soul. I got another job. It pays a little less, but they treat me with respect. I'm worth more than a paycheck, Mom. Yes, Evan, you are worth so much more. The brothers had also begun to rebuild their relationship. It was difficult at first. There was resentment on both sides. Julian blamed Evan for not defending him sooner. Evan blamed Julian for hurting me so badly. But slowly, with conscious effort, they began to heal. One Sunday, they invited me to lunch. The 3 of us, Evan, Julian, and me, at a simple restaurant downtown. Nothing fancy. Just a table, 3 plates of food, and an honest conversation. Mom, Evan began, we want to talk about the house. I felt my body tense immediately. Here we go again, I thought. Julian held up his hand. No, Mom, it's not what you think. We just want you to know that we respect your decision. The trust, the foundation, all of it. We understand why you did it, and we agree. Evan nodded. We had a long talk, Julian and I, about inheritances, about expectations, about how we never should have assumed we had a right to your assets. That house is yours. You earned it. You paid for it. It's your decision what to do with it. And we decided something else, Julian continued. When you're no longer here, many, many years from now, we're not going to fight over anything. We're not going to claim anything. We're going to honor your memory by being better men than we were. Tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't speak. I just nodded as they both took my hands. We mean it, Mom, Evan said. It's not about the money anymore. It's about you, about valuing you while you're here, about not waiting until it's too late. That conversation freed me from a weight I didn't know I was still carrying, the constant fear that this was all temporary, that the remorse was fake, that at any moment we'd be back at the beginning. But we didn't go back. We kept moving forward. The foundation asked me to give a talk to a group of older women who were going through similar situations: family abuse, financial manipulation, children who treated them like disposable objects. I was nervous all week. Margaret helped me prepare what I would say. You don't need a perfect speech, Eleanor. You just need your truth. The room was full, 30 women of different ages, all with stories like mine. I stood in front of them, hands shaking and heart racing. My name is Eleanor. I am 62 years old. And almost a year ago, my son yelled at me to be quiet when the adults are talking. The silence in the room was absolute. 30 pairs of eyes looked at me with immediate understanding. I told them my story. No embellishments, no drama. Just the facts, the manipulation, the humiliation, the decision to protect myself, the consequences, the rebuilding. When I finished, a woman raised her hand. How did you know it was the right time to act? I didn't. I just knew I couldn't keep waiting for things to get better on their own. Change never comes from passive hope. It comes from decisive action. Another woman asked. Did your sons really change? Or are they just acting until they get what they want? That is the question I ask myself every day. And the answer is, I don't know for sure. But what I do know is this. I no longer base my peace on their behavior. I no longer depend on their validation. If they've changed, wonderful. If they haven't, I am going to be okay anyway. The women applauded. Some were crying. Others nodded in recognition. After the talk, several women approached me. They hugged me. They thanked me. They told me their own stories. One of them, a woman named Yasmin, 70 years old, told me something I'll never forget. I spent 40 years being a mother. I forgot how to be Yasmin. Your story reminded me I can be both. I can love my children and also love myself. Exactly, I told her. They aren't mutually exclusive. That night, back home, I sat in my favorite armchair. The apartment was silent. A silence that no longer scared me. It was a silence full of possibility, of peace, of freedom. I looked at the walls, the family photos I had hung back up. But now they were mixed with new photos. My friends from the book club, my yoga partners, the women from the foundation. My life had expanded beyond just being a mother. I was a friend. I was a mentor. I was Eleanor. The phone rang. It was Julian. Mom, just calling to say goodnight and to say, I love you. I love you too, son. Then Evan called. The same. Good night, Mom. We love you. Good night, Evan. I hung up and smiled. I had come so far from that terrible day, from that meeting, from that humiliation. The road had been painful. I had lost the family I knew, but I had gained something better. A conscious family. A family that chose to be together, not out of obligation or convenience, but out of genuine love and mutual respect. I stood up and walked to the balcony. The night was clear. The stars shone over the city. A soft breeze moved the plants I had potted. The jasmine climbing the wall filled the air with its sweet scent. I thought of Arthur, how much I still missed him, but also how much I had grown since his death. He would have been proud. He would have applauded my courage. He would have celebrated my rebirth. I did it, Arthur, I whispered to the wind. I defended myself. I saved myself. And I saved our sons, too, even if they didn't know it at the time. A shooting star crossed the sky. I made a wish. Not for money, not for revenge, not for validation. I wished for peace. For me, for my sons. For all the women who were fighting similar battles in silence. I went into the apartment. I made tea. I wrapped myself in my favorite blanket. I opened the book I was reading for the group. But before I started, I took out my journal. I had started writing a few months ago. Evan's therapist had suggested I try it. I wrote, "Today I gave a talk. I told my story. And in telling it, I understood something fundamental. I am not a victim. I am a survivor. And there is a huge difference between the two. The victim gets stuck in the pain. The survivor uses the pain as fuel to grow. I choose to be a survivor. I choose to grow. I choose to live." I closed the journal. I drank my tea. I opened my book. And I read until my eyes grew tired and sleep came naturally, peacefully. That night, I dreamed of gardens full of flowers, with children's laughter, with Arthur smiling at me from a distance. And when I woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming through my window, illuminating my room with golden light. It was a new day, and I was ready to live it, on my own terms, with my dignity intact, with my heart healed, with my future in my hands.